Hello, my dear friends. How are you all doing? I hope you all are doing great and are in perfect health. Well, thank you so much for joining us again for another interesting interview. It's going to be thoroughly exciting. I'm totally excited to be interviewing this dignitary. He is just fantastic. He's also known as the Miracle Man. Yes, Michael Grosso. I'd like to share a bit more about him. He is an artist philosopher immersed in the mysteries of the mind. Michael prides himself on being an independent scholar and part of an ever growing group of educators and intellectuals critical of the prevailing materialistic view of the world. With a PhD in philosophy from Columbia University and an MA in classical Greek, he has taught humanities and philosophy at a number of institutions, including City University of New York, John F. Kennedy University, Marymount Manhattan College, and New Jersey City University. He has written innumerable books. Few of them are The Man Who Could Fly, Saint Joseph of Cupertino and the Mystery of Levitation. Second, Experiencing the Next World Now. Another one, The Millennium Myth, Love and Death at the End of Time. Next, Soul Making, Uncommon Paths to Self Understanding. The Final Choice, Death or Transcendence. Next, Wings of Ecstasy, Domenico Bernini's Vita of Saint Joseph of Cupertino, 1722. Next, Frontiers of the Soul, Exploring Psychic Evolution. Prominently among his co-authored volumes is Irreducible Mind, Toward a Psychology for the 21st Century. Well, his latest book is called Smile of the Universe, and I have the cover right at you. Miracles in an Age of Disbelief. In this is his latest illustrious writing, and more so, he now resides in Charlottesville, Virginia, where he has participated in the work of the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies. He is currently a director of the American Philosophical Practitioners Association. He was a reviews editor for its Journal of Philosophical Practice. As well, Michael conducts wisdom seminars, discussion groups that apply philosophy to problems of everyday life. Without further ado, I would like to invite Michael Grosso with us. And here it.
Well, thank you very
Namaste,
much.
Michael.
I'm delighted, happy to be here.
We are so excited to have you with us. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm doing fine. In America right now, we're like everywhere else on the planet. We're a little in a strange state of affairs, right? With this
Yes, yes.
pandemic and all the rest. It's a very interesting time to be alive and to stay alive, if possible.
I'm sure you've seen so much of life, and it's just amazing. I was able to go through your book, and you have so many things out there, so much of research that you have done, right from the Middle Ages to right now, since the last couple of years. It's just baffling how you got that in one single book.
Yes, there's a lot of the territory I've covered there.
That's right. That's right.
What's happening?
I guess there is some internet issue, but we should be fine.
Okay, because you disappeared for a moment. I thought maybe I was observing a miracle.
So, yeah, that's something. So, viewers, Michael is also known as the Miracle Man. I'm going to ask you that sometime during this conversation that we have. But if you're totally fine, we should get going with our interesting interview. What do you say?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Fantastic. So, the first What exactly do you mean by miracles? And what is the role of biology in miracles?
Well, what I mean by a miracle, have two senses of the word. One is simply the emotional character of events astonish and fill us with wonder. I mean, that's the psychological part. But
Right.
the technical meaning of miracle, as I use the term, is an event that current physical science cannot explain, such as levitation or any of the other phenomena that I describe in my book.
Right.
They do not, we cannot understand these in terms of the prevailing science. That's the key point about the meaning, how I use the term miracle. Some of them are very spectacular. Some of them are sort of minor. Even ordinary everyday telepathy is, in a sense, a miracle because science doesn't understand how it's possible. But anyway, that's the
Right.
sense how I'm using the term miracle, partly for rhetorical purposes and partly for an exact scientific point I'm trying to make about to
Right.
materialistic science.
So,
That's
so,
pretty much my sense of the
so how
word.
does biology amalgamate with miracles, if you say so?
Oh, well, there are biological miracles in the sense that there are events, there are cases on record of healings that are
Right.
unexplainable in terms of ordinary everyday biology. Levitation, for example, not is contrary to what we know about the physics of the body.
Right.
So my conclusion is that miracles occur on a physical, a biological, and a psychological level. So there are three to to the world of miracles, so to speak, and they're all
Right.
about human beings. The explanation I
Hmm.
leave to that's a mystery how to explain. But the fact is, there are phenomena that suggest that human beings have extraordinary abilities, that we are perhaps invincible. I'm using your word over there.
Yes, for sure.
There are creative possibilities that human beings. My whole purpose is to remind people and that however we may not be aware, we all possess latent abilities that are quite extraordinary. So that's my sort of one of the main points of my book.
Right.
But anyway, I
Like
hope that yeah.
yes, yes, totally. Like in your book, you had mentioned it's from Saint Augustine, where he says that the whole of creation and all natural things filled are actually miraculous, which you have stated in the book as well. So it's quite contemporary if you look at it. Like everything around us is a miracle.
Well, in the sense that nobody really knows why there is
Mm,
something rather than nothing, right? Uh,
right.
and I mean, there are other basic mysteries. I think there are three very basic mysteries. One, the mystery of being.
Right.
Two, the mystery of life itself. Science has not figured out the origin of life yet. It may yet
Right.
eventually. But and then thirdly, the consciousness. There isn't a scientist on the planet who can explain why we are conscious, or
Mm,
in other words, our mental life. It's completely difficult. And so those are the three starting mysteries, the starting miracles, so to speak. Being, our life, and our very consciousness
right.
is a mystery,
It
and
is.
in a sense, a miracle.
It is. I mean, it's difficult. You're right. It's so difficult to actually imagine how deep a consciousness can be. It could be going to different dimensions, like non-locality, which you have also mentioned in your book. So it can go through a different space, time. Nobody knows. So you're so right that nobody has been able to explain it like word to word or go in depth about it.
That's right. That's right. And that's only the beginning,
Yes,
so to
yes,
speak.
yes. Wonderful. So that comes to the second question. This one is interesting. As some of us understand that we are not God, but a part of Him, what is the role of consciousness in miracles?
Well, the role of consciousness is, as I said, very basic. And consciousness itself is the miracle. But then what consciousness can do, uh, the psychological phenomena, clairvoyance, telepathy, the ability of the
Right.
mind or consciousness to pick up impressions from the future. So there's a mystery of time. The consciousness is absolutely fundamental. Without consciousness, there is no universe for anyone to experience without consciousness.
Right.
And I think it's fascinating that when we stop and just think about ourselves, that each of us, in a certain sense, is a living miracle.
Yes.
And we need to wake up to that, I believe.
True. So when we talk about consciousness, Michael, is it also that if a person is able to tap his or her higher potential or higher consciousness, would the occurrence of miracles or the occurrence of certain phenomena increase? Or it is just that a person is living a normal day-to-day life where he is conscious about his surroundings, his feelings, but not tapping into the highest or the high consciousness? Would one be differentiating between the two, or how would you put it?
Uh, Absolutely. It is not our everyday, ordinary consciousness is focused on survival, eating, drinking, uh, uh, just
Going to work,
basic.
family,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
basic.
But it is the extraordinary states of the unusual states of consciousness, like dreams, for example, or the
Yes,
things that saints and yogis do when they go into, they concentrate, and they intensify their consciousness by fasting, by meditating, by
yes,
dwelling in solitude.
right,
All
right.
of these extraordinary behaviors alter the nature of consciousness so that it becomes more receptive to levels of being and levels of reality that we're ordinarily totally unaware of. So ordinary life is ordinary, but in special circumstances, uh, altered states of consciousness tend to reveal the extraordinary phenomena are related to extraordinary states of consciousness.
Right,
But I would
right,
say that that's true.
right. I guess we just lost you. You said that is through meditation. That's what you said, right?
Yes,
Yes.
or any
Yeah.
kind of altered, a near-death experience,
Right,
the use of psychoactive drugs can change your normal perception of reality.
right, right.
Extreme danger.
The
Uh,
the
e-
fight or flight.
yes,
Yes.
almost anything that where the mind is not operating normally and the consciousness is forced into new directions, that will often result in extraordinary phenomena.
Right, right, right. Awesome, awesome. So this is very close to you. Any one such incident which turned you into a believer of miracles? One of the incidents that you can
Very, very interesting.
remember.
It's a very interesting question.
Yes.
Well, I can give a lot of examples. I, for example, have had experiences of precognition. In 1981, President Reagan was almost assassinated. You may remember that.
Yes. Yes.
I was teaching philosophy at that time, and I had 3 dreams in a row
Wow.
in which I witnessed the president. The first 2 dreams, he was shot exactly where he was shot later on. And the third, I saw the president looking very healthy and radiant with health. So I shared dreams with my students. And then one day, a student called me up and said, Dr. Grosso, you're a psychic. The president has been shot. And the first thing I said was, but he's going to survive, because I had seen him in the last dream looking very healthy. So how is it possible for me to have 3 dreams about the president being shot weeks before it actually took place? If it was one dream, you could say it's a coincidence, right? But
Correct.
not 3 dreams in a row. And all the details in the dream were precise. So that's one example. But I've had other examples of other experiences that woke me up to the possibility of miracles. And I could go on giving you examples, but that's one example. I'll
Right.
mention one more. Is that all right? One more example?
Yes. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, yeah.
We'll be more than happy. Even the viewers will be happy to know more about.
All right. I mean, I could go on with the examples, but I was teaching a class on human development
Okay.
with another colleague. There were 2 teachers, and we were talking about unusual physical phenomena.
Right.
So one of my students suggested that we play a game that children play called Light as a Feather. The children, they will put their hands on a child and they will breathe in unison and then raise the child up in the air. Know what they're doing, that it's unusual. So
Right.
a student said, so let's do that in class. So I picked out a 200-pound ex-Marine, and I had 4, and I had him put him in a chair, right? Sat him down.
Okay.
And I got the women, and they just touched him on the elbows and underneath his knees. And we had them breathe in unison, chant together for a couple of minutes. And then I said, lift. And to my complete amazement and everybody's amazement, he went up in the air. I mean, they were touching him. 4 of them, just touching him. He went up in the air. I will never forget the look of total astonishment on his face.
Wow.
And then
200
very gently,
pounds.
yes,
Wow.
yes. And this, in my own, I knew that was physically impossible. I have never been able to reproduce that experiment. Never. But
Wow.
I did it once. So that opened me up to do research on levitation. And so that's another example where I myself witnessed the levitation. And that student never forgot. The whole class was completely flabbergasted of this heavy guy going way up in the air.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Me visualizing it right now, like 4 guys and one 200-pound person sitting on a chair, and how these 4 people just the elbow and below the knee and lift him up. It's surreal.
Right.
It would just happen like in one of
effort.
those fantasy movies.
That's right. And they're not pushing. There's no effort. I could see that. Just up he went. And then down gently, because he could have hurt himself. So that blew my mind and got me into research on levitation. And I wrote two books on
Wow.
levitation, which you mentioned earlier.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. Coming back to the first example which you mentioned about President Reagan, while I was going through your book, you have mentioned about this person by name, where basically it's by location, being at two places at the same time. His name was
Aha.
Padre.
Padre
I don't know how to.
Pio.
Yes, yes, Pay. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry about that. So, could that be the experience that you also had? Could it be like a bi-location? You were actually present at the time when President Reagan was shot, and then you came back, just thinking it
No,
out
I,
loud.
yeah, no, by location is different. That is when a person, usually it's a saint or a yogi who does this. Ordinary people don't do this.
All
But
right.
usually what's involved is the person who bilocates remains physically in one place, but appears
Oh,
elsewhere, physically appears elsewhere, and does something, so
okay.
that there are two versions of the same person. It only lasts a few minutes usually.
Right.
But St. Joseph of Cupertino,
Yes.
he was in Rome when his mother was dying in another city in Italy. And he appeared to his mother. Other people near his mother witnessed him appear, and they said, what is he doing here? He's supposed to be in Rome." So that's
Right.
another example.
Right.
It's an example that I give of bilocation.
Yes.
And that doesn't
Yes.
happen very often, but highly
Mhm.
spiritual people seem able to do that sort of thing.
Right, right. It was something very intriguing when I actually read about it. And when you shared about this experience, so it made me curious to actually
Yes,
ask you
indeed.
about that.
It is very curious indeed. So,
Oh,
so
wonderful. That brings us to the next question.
uh-huh.
Why should people today who are grappling with this pandemic, the economy, and social dislocation, and all of the rest that's going on in the world, be interested in miracles? Wouldn't that be a kind of escapism? What do you
Well,
feel?
some people might say that if they don't believe that these things are real. But my feeling is that there is another dimension of reality
True.
that we need to be aware of. And when we're in a crisis,
Mm,
often the most remarkable things happen when people are in a crisis. I mean, the big example would be a near death experience. I mean,
yes,
what could be worse? What could be more damaging? More damaging than being near death.
true.
But it turns out that being near death is often a gateway to another reality, to total transformation. So,
Right.
the answer to your question is that it's important to remind ourselves that there is
Mm,
more to us than our bodies, that there is an
right.
inner reality, that we have inner resources,
Right.
and I think that could be helpful to be
Right.
reminded of that fact.
Right. Right.
While things are going so bad in the external world, we have to remember that there's an internal reality also. That would be my
Right.
reply to that
Right.
question. Yeah.
Very very beautifully you have shared in your book about the four pointers how to live by miracle, which you have mentioned in the book. Which really meant a lot, and I could totally sink in with what you shared about having belief, then going within, the solitude which you just shared, and the
Yes.
psychokinesis,
Yes.
thinking about the end result, and also the spontaneity, not to lose that, how kids have the spontaneity and
Absolutely.
how they create. So, these 4 points actually makes so much of sense. I mean, if we delve into it deeper, would you like to share a little bit more upon these points because it's been by you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, people wonder, well, how do these things happen? How can we prepare ourselves to be more receptive to
Right.
our inner potentialities?
Right.
And people have understood this, from the beginning of world civilizations. And certain things we can do. And as you listed them perfectly yourself. Going within. There has to be.
Right.
You have to pay attention. You have to quiet yourself down,
Mm.
even though sometimes it's in the middle of a crisis that you open up. Other times it's you want to retreat into yourself. And for example, many psychic experiences occur when you're dreaming. And the dream is getting deep inside of yourself, deep
Right.
inside of your mind.
Right.
But in terms of relating to the outer world, we have to be open, loose, spontaneous. If we
Mm.
have rigid mindset and fixed habits, the likelihood of us being open to our inner creative forces is diminished. So, in a sense,
Mm.
you have to combine a kind of inner discipline, but an outer spontaneity, a kind of looseness of lifestyle, flexibility.
Mm.
If you
Mm.
have a rigid conception of reality, you're going to block out the
Mm.
inspiration that is potential and within you. So it's a
Right.
tricky game that one has
Mm.
to play, the art of living. And
Right.
but we have a lot of hints and lessons to learn from the great traditions of the world, the spiritual traditions of the world,
Mm. Mm.
and that includes religions as well as indigenous religions.
Right.
All people throughout history have figured out ways to tap into their creative selves.
Mm.
And it's easy to forget about that in an age of scientific progress, consumerism, capitalism,
Absolutely.
all the
Materialism. Yeah.
fixation. Yeah, exactly. Militarism.
Oh, yes.
So,
One cannot forget that.
yes, we need to remind ourselves that there's a whole universe of potential
Mm.
lying deep within every human being. I think that's a powerful belief
It
to
is.
hold on to. Yeah, and but I appreciate that question a great deal because we are in a challenging time right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, one of the questions when we mention about, the pandemic is we see that a young person dies of corona, and at the same time, an
Hmm.
80-year-old comes out as a survivor. How would you
Hmm.
explain, and how does it fall under a miracle, or is it a situation that is more or less a health specific situation, or would it be a miracle,
Mm.
or if we talk about karma, would it be on the
Uh-huh.
lines of that?
I think it's probably calmer, and also, frankly, who knows? I mean, older people are more vulnerable. One of the things about human beings and human life is the unpredictable element. We can never be too sure about anything.
Absolutely. Change is
So
the only constant, I believe.
exactly, and not only change but surprises.
Yes.
So whatever general ideas we have about what is possible, there's almost always exceptions to the rule. Not necessarily. I think if you're 80 years old and you survive, uh, you know, I'm not saying that's a miracle. You just maybe were very healthy, and maybe you got a small amount
Right. Of the virus.
of the virus. You see, there are natural explanations. We don't want to
Yes.
see mirror, you know, but they're
Right.
there nonetheless.
Right. 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 Wonderful. So that brings us to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Does one have to be religious and believe in God in order to experience a miracle? Is it a necessity
Huh.
to believe?
Yeah, clearly no. On the other hand, I would say that probably the most spectacular and frequent manifestations of miracles come from deeply spiritual people, but not all of the time. And just ordinary, everyday people could start praying very hard and something miraculous will happen. But let's say that a deeply evolved spiritual life
Mm, mm,
is conducive, more likely to produce unusual phenomena of the sort that we are discussing right now. But there's
right.
the funny thing is, again, there's no predicting what can happen. I mean, the time
True.
I watched that Marine lift the 200-pound guy, we
Exactly.
were not, that wasn't not religious. It was just
Right.
curiosity
Right. Right.
resulted in the phenomenon. So the power, the latent power uh, to have miracles is all over the place. It's unpredictable, but more
Mm,
likely to
mm.
occur in in a spiritual setting, I would say.
Right, right. So, Michael, if we can say to be able to go within and to tap in your insides, the core, and to be able to connect to that higher self, that in itself would be rewiring your entire brain, and the waves that you would be sending out would hence create something which your intent is so clear. So could it be said that you would actually be a co-creator of the miracle? Yes, the energies and frequencies around us might help us to traverse in the same direction. Would that would can we put it in that way?
Absolutely. I love that expression, co-create. I think it's a partnership between us and the transcendent. And it could,
Right.
I use the word transcendent because I want to be open to all religions.
Yes. Yes.
And that's the neutral term.
Mm,
God, the guardian angel, spirits,
spirits.
whatever entity or force you can
Phenomena.
relate to
Yeah.
could be part of a co-creative process. But that's the term. I like that
Mm.
term a lot. Creative. I think I'm going to use it from now on.
For
I'll
sure,
quote
for
you.
sure. Yeah, even in the last chapter of your book, you very beautifully mentioned about having a dialogue with the transcendent, which itself says that to be open and discover and explore so many things around you and not be stuck up in only one realm. That's the last
That, that,
chapter.
that, yes, it is. And one of the things I'm trying to convey to people, even if they're not religious, that they should be open to the possibility of interacting their own inner creative potential. You don't necessarily have to have a specific belief
Right.
in God. And on the other hand, if you do have these creative experiences, it might open you up to the possibility of talking in those religious terms.
Right.
But
Right.
I would like to go, in a sense, beyond religion to the
Mm.
core of our human potential. And religion too often serves to separate people. I'm looking for ways to connect people. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, if we look at it from ages, religion has been made by man. It's not that it has come from a certain somewhere, but it has always been a
Mhm.
man for their unfortunate selfish motives and reasons that they have had that they have created religion. But at the end of it, when a baby is born, the baby doesn't even know
Mhm.
whether it is
Right.
belonging to a certain sect, a certain religion, or a certain caste, but it's the
Mhm. Mhm.
humans who have stamped, and hence the entire life of that child, that life, that energy, I would say, is like, okay, this is who you are, And it's again, it's like living in a well. It's like frog in a well. The frog thinks the well is the universe. And
Yes.
I really appreciate
Yes.
what you shared right now, that the message that you want to get across is more than this so-called religion that we have all over the world for whatever reasons. Let's not even get there, because that will be very politically driven. And we all know how bad politics is. Yes, there are a few amazing
Yes.
politicians who we have had, but yeah, to get that message across, to actually believe in the oneness of humanity, believe in the wholeness of looking from the spiritual perspective, it's so important that we get this message across, and it's a beautiful time for us to do that.
I completely agree with you. And we don't have to throw religion out. I just say use it. We use science. When it's helpful,
Right,
take
right,
advantage. When it's not helpful, be critical
right.
and reject. And
Seek answers. Yeah.
yes, yes, exactly. And but I don't want to generalize too much about religion because, again, for many people, their religious beliefs are helpful,
Right.
and it gives them a way of connecting with this higher
Mm,
creative power that is,
mm,
I
mm.
believe, part of nature and part of our human potential.
Yes, yes, yes. I agree with that point. I mean, yes, you're totally right. A lot of people, because of that so-called religion, they are able to connect with the spiritual aspect as well, which helps them to dig deeper. Yeah,
Yes.
but this point which you shared is to ask questions, to be critical, to, if something which is going on since ages, and does it really apply in today's day and age? If it does not, but because it has been going on, do we need to
Mhm.
really follow it or tweak for the betterment of humans? That is something that each person who has been into a certain religion should actually keep their minds open, so that, okay, as you rightly said, let's not get into the religion, and not that it is anything wrong about it, but to be open ended and still keep following it.
Yes, absolutely. And I am drawn to the religions that tolerate diversity.
Yes.
And to say this, since I'm speaking to people in India, that I've been a student of Indian religion all my life,
Wonderful.
and a great admirer of the idea that there is one spirit with many forms of the deity, many shapes and forms. That
Yes.
makes a whole lot more
Yes.
sense to me than insisting that there is only one way that we can talk about God or the divine. And if you don't agree with it, you're lost, you're damned, get out of here, or better
True.
yet, we're gonna knock you off.
Right, right.
So I mean,
So
that's
true.
I think that the Hindu philosophy is far more open and open to miracles, by the way.
Oh,
Uh,
yes,
and
definitely.
so yeah,
India has been famous for these few words: unity in diversity.
those are my favorite words. We got to have both,
Yes,
right? Both.
yes, yes,
And that's while I'm here and I've got you, do you remember in 1995 the milk
oh, yes,
miracle in India?
yes. You've mentioned that in the book.
It's in the book that I
Yes,
saw that.
yes,
I witnessed it
yes,
on CNN,
yes.
watching
You've
it on
mentioned that in the book.
television.
Yes,
And I'll never forget the look on the BBC reporter when that milk
yes,
just disappeared. I saw it. He saw it.
yeah,
Then I
yeah.
had two
Yes,
Indian
one
students.
one had the spoon next to that
That's right.
idol, and
And he went on the line 3 times to
yes,
prove
yes,
to himself that this was real. And he wrote me up a beautiful written report, which I think I quote a little bit in the
yes. You
book.
have quoted. Yes,
That is an amazing story. And what amazes
yeah.
me most of all, how quickly it seems to have been forgotten.
Oh
I
yes,
mean,
just two
maybe not in
days,
India.
two to 3 days. It was like a hoo-ha about it, and then later on, nobody even thinks about it. I mean, everybody's
Yeah, I don't get that. Yeah, I don't get that. They talk about, movie stars endlessly,
yeah,
trivial
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and there's something that's awe-inspiring, mind-blowing,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
it's quickly forgotten. It blows my
Yeah.
mind. It really does. But I don't forget. That's my job, is to try to remember these things and talk
Oh
about them.
yes, I mean your book is so full of so many researches. I mean, reading it, I was like, like you started off with the transportation of the house, the translocation of the house, the one which happened in 330, where the mother of Jesus lived, and how that
Uh-huh.
house has transported itself through centuries. I mean, you have mentioned about that.
Right.
Is I was like baffled. I was like, wow. It's insane.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
it
astounding to
is.
actually, the transportation happening way back at that point of time, and you being able to, do the research. And you're amazing. Seriously, Michael. I mean, hats off to you. Total respect. So much of research you have put is amazing. A lot of people may not even know.
Well,
Like, I didn't know about it. I had no idea.
yeah. Well, the flying house, I'm a little hesitant about accepting it as a true story,
Right.
but that's almost every other case. The evidence is strong and convincing.
Right.
That story is a little so far out, but it's also entertaining. And I
Yes.
would say this about miracles: they're fun, they're
Yes.
entertaining, they're unusual, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
but they're also deeply important as
Yes.
well
Yes.
as entertaining.
Right. Like the
uh,
recent early 19th century in London, 1871, the teleportation of Mrs. Guppy, which you have
uh,
mentioned.
that's a really, but that story that I tell about the transportation of Mrs. Guppy is very funny because number one, there were 8 witnesses that signed
Exactly.
to what they saw, what they experienced. And it
Mm.
was a joke for them because they said she's one of the heaviest women in the whole of London. So can you
Right.
imagine that? I mean, it's hard to accept as true, I will admit.
Right.
But I also don't believe these people are lying. They're making up.
True.
Some people do
True.
lie, no.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't think this is a case. I think the evidence
Mm.
is very strong
It's
in that
very strong.
story,
Yes. Yes.
and especially since she was well known by a number of great scientists who took her quite seriously.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes, thank you for reminding me of Mrs. Guppy. That's a nice, entertaining idea of the big lady flying through space.
Yes, yes. So when we talk about miracles, Michael, the actions that we take in the present, it defines our future. So can we say that the present has a role in a miracle we could experience in the future? Somewhat about the co-creation aspect itself. So the present could be quite important to make the miracle happen in the future.
Well, I'm not sure how. Yeah, I can imagine some things happening that would increase the likelihood of, but I'm not quite sure what you mean there. In
So
what sense?
So, for example, like if I have to go from my room to the other room and grab a glass of water, so I have to make that action happen. So I'll have the glass in my hand and I can just sip on water. So can we say that whatever
Right.
actions we are taking right now, it could
Ah,
manifest into a miracle in the future?
well, yes, I think that if you are uh, on a path of spiritual exploration and you change your
Hmm.
life and you control your consciousness, and it could be you would fast, you would meditate, you would renounce things that you're ordinarily attached to that are distracting.
Right.
By changing your life, there's no question about the fact that you are increasing the likelihood of opening up to inner potentials that ordinarily just quiescent. So yes, I think we can, and my own feeling is that right now, all the disorder in the world is going to open up many people. I mean, already there are reports of changing their lives, trying new things. When you're forced to be creative and
Right.
inventive,
Right.
that's another way that the present can prepare you for a creative future. A
Right.
dark present can sometimes prepare you for an open and brighter future.
Right. Right.
So yes, and likewise the opposite. If you're just lead a selfish, indulgent, superficial life, you are, in a sense, shaping your future a little less exciting and a little less enlightened than it might be if you had lived a different lifestyle. So
Right.
yeah, I think our lifestyle is crucial
Right.
in
Like
planning on
I
in
like
shaping the future.
so true. Like the one which you, the few words that you mentioned about the pandemic that we're living right now, the negativity that we're living right now. I'd like to quote a Japanese priest in the 13th century. His name was 12th century, Nichiren Daishonin, and he has wrote
Hmm.
in his writings. He's actually a Buddhist, so he has wrote in his writings, writing a letter to one of his very dear disciples, and he said, "Great good is followed by great evil." So when someone or a consciousness, a collective consciousness, goes through a certain level of evil in whatever ways, I mean, I would say that coronavirus could be an evil, but the good that is following, which you mentioned right now, I guess that would be much more bigger and magnanimous if we look at the small iota of damage that it has done to all of us as humans.
I agree. I mean, I hope that's true. I mean, it's we don't want to be superficial about this and say, "Right, there are people dying, people being evicted from their homes, suffering all over the
Yes,
place." But yes,
yes.
we are entitled to hope that this will perhaps be a period of awakening for the world at large. After all, it's unusual to be in a state where everybody has something in common at the same time. Every human being living on this planet wants to avoid getting this disease. So there's an alertness and awareness that we're all in this together, right?
Together.
That's an
Yes.
unusual state of affairs.
Yes.
And I'm confident that unusual and perhaps great changes are on the horizon. I hope so, at any rate.
Absolutely. We
I think,
all we all look forward to a lot of things with hope and courage and conviction.
right, right.
So,
And the purpose of
yes.
my, yeah, go
Yes, please go
ahead.
ahead. No, no, sorry. Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to reiterate that again, I could summarize my research in saying that at the very least, it's an effort to offer hope, hope in human potential, but hope that is not empty hope, hope that's
Right.
based on something real,
Right.
real
Right.
potential. But go
Yes.
ahead. What was your last? You
Yes.
were going
So,
to ask me
yeah,
something.
I was going to ask, what is your take on life after death?
Ah, okay. Life after death. Well, that's a good question. A lot, most people do not know that there is a great deal of evidence that points toward the reality of life after death. And not only the near-death experience, but apparitions, a mediumship. There are all kinds of experiences that have by parapsychologists. And I think that I myself have had some encounters. I spent a night in a haunted
Wow.
house and was attacked by
Wow.
a ghost.
I would
So
love
if
to
you
know.
ask me,
Even
do
the
I?
viewers would love to know what happened.
Well, I can tell you what happened very briefly. I had
Sure.
a student who complained to me that her house was haunted, and about people saw this
Wow.
entity in their house. It
Okay.
tended to show up in the bathroom and look at the young girls. So it was a kind of dirty old man ghost.
All
And
right.
so I was invited to spend the night in the haunted house. Or I asked permission and they let me come. So I'm sitting in a room, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and my eyes are wide open, and I'm just reading. I'm not expecting anything to happen. When
Okay.
suddenly I hear a gong ring in the room that I'm sitting in, and I noticed on the wall a gong with a stick in it, but no one hit it. So I go up and I pick it. I pick it up. Take the stick out, and I hit the gong. It's the same sound I just heard.
Okay.
I say to myself, "How nice! I got a little visit from the ghost," and I think that's all there is to it. So I go back and sit, and I'm very happy that I seem to have gotten a visit from the ghost in the form of a gong, the noise that it made. So I'm sitting there, and suddenly I look up in the corner of the room, and I see a ghost-like transparent form of a man. I'm looking at it, and I'm sitting on the couch. I'm sort of reading because I want to stay awake. And suddenly, it comes right at me,
Wow.
itself around me, and paralyzes me. And I'm trying to yell out to the people above sleeping, "It's here!" I can't. I'm frozen.
Choked.
It's got me
Right.
locked, and it's right to my face to face, and then it disappears. So I didn't wake anybody up, and in the morning I explained what happened. But first I heard the gong, then I saw the ghost, then it physically attacked me. Do I believe in ghosts? I'll say I obviously believe
Definitely
in
yes.
ghosts. You see. So I would say this about the connection between miracles and life after death. If human beings have the unusual psychic powers that miracles imply, that we can do these extraordinary, powerful things with our minds, why shouldn't the mind survive the death of the body? It suggests to me that our minds are substantial entities with the ability to make things happen. And one of the things that could very well be happening is, since the mind is not in itself a physical entity, it's
Right.
only attached and related it interacts with the body and the brain. When the body and the brain dies, mind ought to survive. And just philosophically, if the mind is distinct and separate from the brain, it should survive the death of the brain. But in addition, we have all these different kinds of evidence, like the near-death experience, the apparitions of the dead, the ghosts that attacked me, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think uh, there are good reasons, quite apart from religious tradition, for believing that we do survive bodily death. I'm not 100% certain. I'm not dogmatic about this, but
Right. Right.
I won't be surprised if when I pass, I find myself still conscious. I won't be surprised. And if nothing happens, I won't know. So I'm not worried about it. That
But I'm
makes sense,
sure,
right?
yeah, it does. It does. You've actually mentioned a lot about these noisy spirits in the book as well. They're termed as the term goes like
The poltergeist.
poltergeist, the noise,
Yes,
poltergeist. Yes, the noisy
yes.
spirits.
That's a very fascinating phenomenon, and
Yes.
most poltergeists are thought to be byproducts of neurotic children,
Wow.
but there are also poltergeists that seem to have nothing to do with children and that look like
Mm,
ghosts. So
right.
they're a category of phenomena that adds to the belief, strengthens the belief in survival of bodily death.
Right.
Uh,
Right. So going to the next question, what do you mean by living by miracle?
well, we sort of mentioned that before. The living by miracle, living a life where you're tuned in to your inner self, right?
Right.
And where you are spontaneous. By the way, that was a quote from the English poet William Blake.
Yes, you're right.
He
You
said,
mentioned him. Yes.
as for me, he says, I live by miracle. That's just a way of saying like a rhetorical statement about this. So, but there are specific things that we've already sort of touched on that
Yes,
we
the four
can
pointers. Yes.
do.
Yes.
Yeah, that we can do to alter, to increase
Mm,
the plausibility that we tune in to our creative selves. It depends how you live, I think. And
true.
one is simply being open-minded and not locked down in a rigid way of looking at the world. That's where the spontaneity
Right.
comes in.
Right. Right. Fantastic. So, Michael, that brings us to one more question, the last question for this conversation, but I have just thoroughly enjoyed, and I hope the viewers also have had a fantastic time witnessing this enthralling interview. So, the last question that I would like to ask you for this session, I look forward to many more sessions like this between us.
Mhm.
The last question is, how is karma related to miracles?
Ah, well, again, um, karma is action, right, and
Yes.
reaction. If I understand it,
Yes. Yes. The
what you
cause and
do
effect. Yes.
has consequences,
Yes.
and I would say that if you live in a certain way, um, a in a way attuned uh,
To your higher
to
self.
the higher self, that you are going to have affect your life and your afterlife. Uh,
Mm.
if there is an afterlife, and which I think there's a good chance we've agreed on that.
Yes.
Excuse me,
Please have some water. Yeah.
allergies,
Yeah. Yes.
allergies.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, karma it implies that we can shape our lives, and it's important to realize that what happens to us in life is, to a large extent, we're exposed to chance, coincidence, accident, right? We can compensate for that by what our goals in life are. One of the points I make in the book is the importance of goal oriented thinking. What you're
Right.
thinking about, what you're focusing on, what you're hoping for changes your life subtle ways. But if your life is sort of less conscious, less focused,
Mm.
less self aware,
Mm.
you are less likely to possibilities within or the creative events that you encounter in the course of your life. Because things happen that we don't recognize, they are like invitations
Right.
to move in certain directions, and we're not paying attention, we're not listening, so we miss the chance.
Mm.
So being alert to our amazing possibilities
Right.
is a kind of karma which can
Right.
open us toward a more benign and creative future. Anyway, that's the
That's Yeah, that's so true. I love the word possibilities because when we're aware, when we're alert, we open ourselves up towards possibilities, and then we start seeing the signs that the energy in the universe starts to throw at us, and that's like a sure shot answer that okay, you are on the right path. Just be open, just keep going forward, and have stern belief that you're on the right path. And for that to happen, all of us need to be so attuned to that self within, which is like a primary goal that one we should have, like the goal setting which you mentioned right now. I guess for all of us, at least for me, I would say the primary goal would be to have that connection within in order to
yeah,
keep moving ahead and open up to the possibilities that the cosmos throws at us.
absolutely. You said it perfectly.
You're too kind, Michael. Wonderful. So Michael, would you like to share something to our viewers? It has been, and as I said earlier, it's been an enthralling interview. And yes, one more thing, I want to ask the on a much more lighter note, why you call the Miracle Man? Please share. I want to know.
Why am I called a miracle man?
Yes, yes.
I didn't call you. Call me a miracle man. You
No,
put that
because
down, not me.
absolutely, absolutely. Because when I was reading your book, the first thing that came to my head was, oh, okay, Michael sounds like a miracle man himself, though he's delving into that subject so intricately. But he himself, so that came across so vividly in my own head that I was like, wow. So I was like, maybe we can call you the miracle man from now on.
Well, I tell you, I'm the man who loves miracles. Okay, and I've seen a few. And I
Yes,
also, if you have, after a while, you get to see people as miracles. I mean, every human being
that's
is a
beautiful. Yes,
mystery and a miracle. And it does help to have a little love in your heart. We haven't talked about love, but that
yes.
helps. Without love, there are no miracles at all, in my opinion. That's the greatest miracle.
That's the absolute truth if you look at it. Love makes everything possible. The possibilities that we
Absolutely.
just spoke about.
Absolutely.
Wow.
That,
Wonderful,
that, that'll be my
Michael.
last thought.
Fantastic.
Okay,
So
then.
thank you so much, viewers, for joining us on this beautiful interview with Michael Grosso. If you want to get in touch with him, we have his website right here, which is www.paintingthepsyche.com. And you can see the spelling and look forward to again have a beautiful conversation with you, Michael. It has been just fantastic speaking to you, and I wish
Well,
you great health and hope to connect with you very soon.
well, thank you very much. It was quite. I've enjoyed it very much, and I'm with you. Hope to see you again. Thanks a
Thank you
lot.
so much, Michael. Thank you. Okay,
All
viewers,
right then.
stay connected to You Are Invincible for more valid content and beautiful dignitaries just like Michael Grosso. Take good care and
All right.
namaste from our side. Take care. Bye
Ciao.
bye.
Bye bye.